Go.
Okay. So I'm Kira Simbalek. I'm going to be interviewing Monica Horton for the Springfield Votes event. So my first question, I read in one of your interviews when you first started serving on the council, you mentioned zone blitz and that there's like a lot of unfinished business going on in Zone 1 right now. So it's kind of a two-parted question. Like, what are some of those unfinished things you've noticed? And then like, what have you been able to do, or what are you guys working on towards addressing those?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being paired up with me this evening. It's certainly my honor. But to your question, the Zone Blitz was such a huge community effort in Northwest Springfield, and our former councilwoman was able to allow for a whole lot of efforts to address poverty, to address the built environment, so our streets, sidewalks, adding, I guess you would say, more transit stops, and also enacting a smoke detector program through the fire department that allowed for less occurrences of buildings catching fire. So that was a major thing that was going on. But a lot of things that got put in place were such as the community health advocates were put in place. They did blood pressure checks and to really spur an opportunity for residents to be able to get health care, whereas they didn't have a whole lot of interaction, have a whole lot of access and affordability. Another issue has always been workforce development. So we know that there is a concentration of low-income earners in I guess you would say my corner of the city, and there's some housing cost burden associated with that. And so what that simply means is there are a lot of low-income earners who are spending 30% or more of their monthly income for utilities, for rent, for a variety of other housing expenses. And so with all of these burdens, that puts a lot of residents in a precarious situation. We call it housing instability. So that's one of the things that is unfinished, is really dealing with the housing instability. Here's some of the solution to that. Right now, the city of Springfield has the housing study going on. We're doing a comprehensive housing study, and out of that study, we're going to know what is the quality of our housing stock. What's missing in terms of duplexes. We know we have a lot of multifamily, we know we have a lot of single family, but what's missing in the middle in terms of attracting individuals to be able to have housing so we can stabilize, number one, home sales, because they're high, and number two, stabilize rent. Rent right now is just such a cost burden for so many low-income earners, and it was exacerbated because of the pandemic. And so when we say unfinished business, we're talking about dealing with housing instability that's causing individuals to be faced with homelessness, but we're also talking about workforce development. Specifically, our hidden workforce. What do we mean by our hidden workforce? Well, we're talking about individuals who are transitioning back into society. So individuals who have been incarcerated, individuals who are in drug residential programs, and they need to integrate back into society. And a lot of times there's a lot of barriers associated with employment and housing and healthcare and a variety of other things. And so when we look at workforce development and housing, those are the two areas that it would be nice to kind of pick back up concerning the Zone Blitz.
Yeah. So I feel like you kind of already answered my second question. It was about the housing as a priority, because I saw in one of your statements that you were talking about how you guys need to like work on securing housing for everyone, like including people who were recently incarcerated or may suffer from addictions. Are there like government programs that address that, or is it going to be like non-profit, like private?
Well, the thing is, in the community of Springfield, nothing really gets done unless it's a collaborative effort. Mm-hmm. So that would include the private sector, the social sector, as well as the government sector. The role that our role is to really look at what is the overall sense of the community. And we gauge that through a document called the Community Focus Report, mm-hmm. which is produced every 2 years in our community. And we look at what the need is, we look at political will, what is the will of the people to be able to support something, because we can put something into place and it can be reversed in a negative way. And it can be, kind of subverted if folks are not really supporting it. And so back to your question, you're really talking about low barrier housing. Mm-hmm. So we know that individuals have things on their credit reports. We know that there's a tendency to not want to rent to individuals who have a criminal record. We know that there's another barrier just in terms of, we don't have a social ordinance, sexual orientation and gender identity ordinance that will protect individuals from the LGBTQ community from housing discrimination. And so with all of these areas, we kind of have to look at a comprehensive view on where are the barriers to housing and looking at, for lack of a better term, the low-hanging fruit in terms of what can we get done, but always having in the back of our minds how we can go beyond what's easy, right? How can we advocate better? How can we communicate better with landlords and institute risk and loss mitigation for the landlords? If there's a perception that if I rent out to someone who has a Section 8 voucher or someone who has a history of bad credit or a history of eviction or a history of criminal activity, it's like, how do you overcome those barriers? Because yes, they need to be able to have a place to live as well. And a safe and accessible in a clean place, not subject to slumlordom.
And also like something that can help people get like passion and like will to live a better life too, because people getting out of these situations are already going to be experiencing so much defeat on their own. They don't need it from the system too.
Sure.
But one of my last questions, it's about, I know you're running like unattested, but you still, you're campaigning. You want to get people out there and vote. Do you feel like because of like the demographics of your zone, there's like less access for people in like voting over there, like with less people not being able to get transportation or safe transportation? Do you know if there's like a difference in like statistics for voter turnout in those areas?
Well, the fact that you mentioned just overall in Springfield, municipal elections have lower voter turnout. But particularly in Northwest, where I represent.
I used to live over on Kansas Expressway, or near Kinslet, so in your zone. So I'm familiar with those neighborhoods.
Well, the thing is that, just to give a picture, there are 40,000 people.
It's very residential.
In Northwest Springfield. Just in the November election, we only had 8,900 individuals to come out and vote out of 40,000. 8,900 out of 40,000.
Wow.
So I guess that's,
so it's like less than 2%.
2%. Yes. So I think that it starts with voter registration, right? That's where we begin. Really, if we really get those groups like the League of Women Voters, and they are always out there. They certainly have a presence. And the NAACP, they also do a lot of voter registration drives. But I think that also when neighborhoods are having kind of like their block parties and that sort of thing, that's allowing for individuals to come out, I think that's a prime opportunity to be able to increase voter registration. So it starts there, I believe, but also it takes money to like campaign, and I think that candidates would love to have this massive mobilization team to get out and just knock those doors. The more and more that we knock doors and we build our capacity to be able to knock doors and talk to folks one-on-one like we're talking here, that allows for the voter turnout to increase. But because in Zone 1 a lot of times we don't always raise the money that's needed to get the folks out there, many folks rely heavily upon endorsements, and then relying upon postcards and mailers and that sort of thing. But it's really going to take individuals getting on their phones, texting their friends, getting the information out on their socials, but also, you know, maybe even doing door knocking after 5 o'clock on that day, because we know that the polls close at 7. And so knocking on those doors and saying, hey, I know that you had a long day at work today. Would you please get out and vote? We have a lot of issues on the ballot that affect you and I both. And here's how they affect you. You know, we want to have a brand new middle schools through the SBS bond issue. We want to be able to, all the wonderful projects that the city is going to be doing, we want to be able to have those bids come in and address that in one city council meeting instead of 2, and that's a charter change. We need to be able to address our tourism industry through, right now in Springfield, sports tourism as well as cultural tourism through the Springfield Regional Arts Council. But we need those permissions. We don't just do things. We love the democratic process, and we need for voters to be involved in that and give us those permissions, because we certainly don't want for government to feel as though we're just kind of doing things with no voter or resident input, because that's just not that's not the best way for government to operate.
Yeah. I actually do have one more question, and I was reminded of it. It was kind of concerning some of the historical buildings in your district, like C Street, because of the way that they were financially affected from COVID. I read something that you mentioned you're trying to put a focus on helping some of those like older businesses that are small, like bounce back from the effects of COVID. Is that something that you've been working with, like the business owners, with your with your own business? Because I know you do like a business planning and like organization.
Well, I would say that with my personal business, I have business partners that are very favorable to me, and they allow for me to work remotely a lot of times. But concerning Commercial Street, I think that there's such a core, strong group of individuals who have invested decades into historic C Street. And there's a lot of vacant buildings that are located on C Street that are the property of mostly one individual. And so the stakeholders being able to stay informed about what's being developed on the street that's going to also affect their business, I think that that's an important thing. Historic preservation, I'm certainly in support of that. But in terms of, you know, getting involved in small businesses on C Street, they really govern themselves. They do an excellent job. They govern themselves. They have what is called a TIF, a tax increment financing type set up to where their property taxes as well as sales taxes go back into reinvesting into the street. And they do come together and say, hey, let's spend money on a new streetscape, or we need new parking, or we need some beautification, we need more public art, we need more archways and more gateway signs. that let folks know, hey, you just arrived. You have arrived to C Street.
Yeah.
And so they really govern themselves, but in partnership with the city in a lot of ways to help them manage what they already do wonderfully and beautifully on the street.
When you said tourism, I just thought of C Street, and I was like,
oh, I think of C Street too,
yeah.
And looking at the footbridge, that is certainly a priority of City Council with our legislative delegation, our legislative priorities, but also looking at our capital improvements. I mean, all of that is getting that footbridge back up has such sentimental value, but it also has value to bring economic development and quality of place to historic C Street.
Thank you so much for interviewing me.
Thank you. I appreciate your questions. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.